Aloha, Inspired Moneymaker. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to Inspired Money, the show where money meets purpose. I'm your host, Andy Wang, aka Advisor Andy. Today we're doing something really special. This is our best of 2025 episode. I reviewed 40 hours of financial advice so that you don't have to. We're really proud of the shows that we produced this year. 40 live stream episodes that featured 139 expert guests and 3 one-on-one interviews. What was new in 2025? On YouTube, lots of shorts. Since July, I've posted a daily market wrap-up video on every trading day. I posted over 175 shorts in that time. Most of those were market wrap-up videos, a few were clips from the podcast. And doing a daily video is kind of a crazy practice. I don't know if you've ever tried anything like that, doing a daily post on social media or a daily blog. Some people have done daily podcasts, all insane. Doing a daily video, even if it's just 60 to 90 seconds long. I got a lot of reps in. Shooting video on my phone, editing and publishing. It's a really good lesson about consistency and incremental improvement. So the Inspired Money YouTube channel gained 1,600 subscribers for a total of 5,978. And I should note that about 95% of people who watch the show on YouTube are not subscribed. So hit subscribe so we can hit 6,000 before the end of the year. It was a significant year of growth for me on LinkedIn. Thank you to my 22,000 followers, of which 12,000 are new followers who came in this year. That's more than double what I started with at the end of 2024. My posts have garnered over 17 million impressions with over 6.1 million members reached. It's been amazing to see our reach increase, so thank you for that. I don't know if I should bring in Bradley now, but I just want to mention that over the past year, Bradley, John Eaglefeather, our producer, and we sat through 40 conversations with world-class thinkers, financial experts, psychologists, economists, and entrepreneurs to separate timeless wisdom from noisy advice. So our plan for today's show, first, we're going to highlight 2 powerful one-on-one conversations that reshaped how we think about purpose and progress. And then we're going to count down the top 10 moments from Inspired Money from the live stream with guest experts. The insights that challenged conventional thinking delivered real-world utility, and in some cases completely changed how I advise clients after nearly 3 decades in this business. Think of this episode as a filter. We've done the listening, the questioning, and the reflecting so that you can walk away with ideas that truly matter. Before we jump in, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor. This episode of Inspired Money is brought to you by my company, Runnymede Capital Management. We are a family-run and independent investment firm helping people to build wealth with clarity and confidence for more than 30 years. Runnymede offers a free 3-minute financial plan designed to help you get clarity without pressure, jargon, or a long sales call. In just a few minutes, you can see where you stand today, what gaps might be holding you back, and what smart next steps could look like, whether that's investing, retirement planning, or just getting organized. This is not about predicting markets or chasing trends. It's about building a plan that aligns your money with your life and the one that you want to live. So get your free plan by going to inspiredmoney.fm/getplan. That's inspiredmoney.fm/getplan. 3 minutes, no obligation, in a simple way to start 2026 with clarity and confidence. All right, let's bring in producer Bradley, who is producer, creative partner of Inspired Money. He is founder of Eagles Vision, where he specializes in transmedia live stream production and AI construct design. Through deep collaboration, he helps artists, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders elevate their work beyond the ordinary and into the extraordinary. Bradley, we got you from behind the curtain once again.
It only happens once a year these days, but it's been a really fun year. I really have enjoyed watching you personally grow through this journey as well. I remember when we started this and we're 95 episodes into this now. So only 5 more to go.
The reps matter. So we keep getting stronger. I need to do some sit-ups because the podcast reps do not help the waistline. So let's get right into the one-on-ones. I think that one of the most unexpected and maybe even liberating conversations we had this year was with Jordan Doc G. Grummett, creator of the Earn and Invest podcast. He's been a guest many times. And this episode, the one-on-one, is titled Unlock Purpose and Happiness with Dr. Jordan Grummett. Jordan and I discussed his book, The Purpose Code. And in this clip, he really challenges one of the biggest myths in self-help and personal finance. So let's just roll the tape. And so here's a quote from your book as a follow-up to what you've been saying about the, big audacious purpose versus a smaller purpose. And I love this. Not in the big and audacious, but in the small and intentional activities that fill your day with. That's where purpose is hiding.
So basically, it's this difference between big P purpose, big, audacious, goal-oriented purpose that's easy to fail and feels very scarce, right? That's why we all have trouble finding it, versus little P purpose, which is abundant and is process-oriented, not goal-oriented, process-oriented. What are the things that could fill you up while you're doing them? This is really abundant because there could be a million things you love to do, and they're pretty hard to fail because if you're doing it and you're not enjoying it, just do something else.
You have kids. Do you find the resistance? I mean, I know in this book, you also mentioned that people in your community, in promoting your previous book, Taking Stock, lots of people gave you some pushback on, I don't want to find my purpose. Or in talking to our kids, we're trying to prepare them like, this is when I feel like oftentimes we have these conversations about purpose with our kids. It's like, what is it that you want to study in school? What lights you up? What do you have interest in? And as parents, we're trying to figure out, well, hopefully our kids can find something that it's a path where they're going to find happiness and fulfillment. And hopefully they're going to be able to find a career too.
Isn't this backwards though? Take a little kid, take a 5-year-old and leave them alone for a day and don't give them any directions and see what they do. A lot of them will find an activity that they really find joy in, and they'll become so busy they won't even know what to do with themselves. Maybe it's playing basketball. Maybe it's playing cops and robbers with the neighbors. Maybe it's building a fort. Little kids don't have a problem with purpose. Adults do. Little kids get lost in the activities and they forget it's time to eat and they come home late. Like little kids actually understand purpose. It's when we start getting tracked into what society tells us we're supposed to do. It's like, okay, you were a kid, so you could do all these things that lit you up back then, but now you have to get serious and go to school and think about what you're going to do for a living. And that's when you start doing things you don't necessarily enjoy the activity of doing in order to serve a goal.
That really stuck with me. What Jordan is saying is that purpose isn't something that you hunt down like a buried treasure. It's something that you practice. And as someone who's spent nearly 3 decades as a financial advisor, I've seen this play out over and over again. The people who are happiest in retirement, they're not the ones who chase the biggest titles or the most money. They're the ones who built lives filled with small, meaningful activities that they enjoy doing. So I want to go to the next clip. The second one-on-one highlight comes from Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income. The episode is titled Pat Flynn on Lean Learning, Doing More with Less. And in a world where we're drowning in podcasts, books, courses, and content, Pat delivers one of the most practical wake-up calls of the year. And we chose this clip because I think that it hits uncomfortably close to home, especially for high achievers who feel busy but not productive. Pat, you've said that information without action is waste. Can you take us back to a moment in your life when you realized that you were consuming too much and not doing enough?
Yeah, so I'll take you back to 2011, 2012. I had just started my podcast and I was obsessed with podcasts. And you could tell because when you would check my phone and look at my podcast playlist, I was subscribed to over 40 different podcasts. And like many people, we want to try to consume all of that information. So 40 different shows, from health to wellness to finance and, of course, entrepreneurship. I felt like if I missed an episode, I might have missed out on the next big thing, you know, that golden nugget that I needed. But the truth was I didn't need all of that information. And what it was doing was it was making me feel like I was making progress without actually making progress, right? The learning was disguising the actual doing. So I eventually had to unsubscribe from everything, which is something I talk about in the book, and almost kind of like start fresh again and only allow that what is useful to then enter my life and my brain so that I can then apply it, right? Because the more stuff, and like the hard thing about today especially is if you're an entrepreneur, you get inspired really easily. So the more things that you're connected to, the more information you're absorbing, the more inspired you'll be. And you might think, well, isn't that a good thing? Well, not really. If you're inspired over here, and then the next day you're inspired over there, and then the next day over here, and the next day over there, and we're just kind of like bumbling around all these different things versus what would happen if we had focused inspiration on that one thing and gave it at least an amount of time to have a chance to do something like all these other things that we would want to do too. And, you know, it's this idea of the difference between just in case learning, which is what most of us fall into, that trap, just learning just in case we need something, versus what I like to call just in time information, the thing that is relevant to the next thing that we're doing, because nothing else really matters after that. I think we've been conditioned to try to figure out the whole process first before taking any action. And my thesis here is, no, let's figure out the next step. I mean, know where you want to go, sure, but you don't need to know the exact pathway there. Just know your next step, do that, and then you'll figure it out. For example, you had mentioned the switch pod, our invention that Caleb and I made. We didn't know how to make and manufacture a product. We had never done that before, but we knew the first step was to create something that actually people wanted, and it just had to have the right shape. So we cut it out of cardboard. We went to YouTuber events and just let people hold it. And that's what gave us a green light to move on to the next step, which was, okay, well, how do we 3D print this thing? We've never done that before. Okay, let's find a resource and someone who's done this before and ask them. Cool, we got a 3D printer and let's do this thing and see if it moves. And all the way up to marketing and Kickstarter. We had never run a Kickstarter campaign before, but when it was time to sell this thing, okay, let's find somebody who's mastered Kickstarter. We went to an event that had somebody who was keynoting who had kickstarted a physical product. So we got in the same room with them. We started chatting with them, building a relationship with them, learned so much in such a short period of time that we were able to go from concept in 2017 to selling this thing in 2019. In February of 2019, we launched it on Kickstarter. We had over 4,800 backers and had generated $415,000 in 60 days. And again, we had never done anything like that before, but we were learning as we were going instead of learning everything. And then, you know, I feel like if we learned everything that we needed to do and then decided to go forward, we would have just been like, no, this is too much. Like I'm overwhelmed.
It was really cool to have Pat Flynn on the show after listening to his podcast for so many years. So if Jordan Grummett showed us that purpose lives in the small intentional moments, Pat Flynn showed us how to turn intention into action, one focused step at a time. And Pat put into words something that it doesn't just apply to entrepreneurship or a podcast or a YouTube channel. I've watched so many people for years confusing preparation with progress. And this applies to your money too. I can tell you that knowledge alone has never built wealth. Action does. The biggest breakthroughs usually come when someone stops trying to learn everything and commits to taking the next imperfect step. So I hope that you will do that for your investment portfolio, with your budget, whatever it is, in 2026. These one-on-one conversations, we didn't do a lot of them last year. They remind me of why I love doing this show, because when you slow things down, you can really explore ideas that change how you think and act. But Inspired Money is also about something else. In 37 episodes last year, or this year, it's almost last year, We brought smart people together and let ideas collide. Over the past year, our live stream panels tackled some of the biggest questions about money, marketing, psychology, leadership, and the future. And when you put experts in the same virtual room, unexpected insights emerge. Time and time again, post-episode, Bradley and I found ourselves comparing what had just taken place to the perfect dinner party where you invited the perfect guests to come together over, food, drink, and great conversation. Because when you put the right people together, magic can happen. So we curated this year's shows, rewatched 139 guests. I wish we could feature them all, but we cannot. So let's get into it. We are going to highlight the top 10 moments from our Inspired Money live streams of 2025. The clips that challenged conventional wisdom, delivered immediate takeaways, and sparked some of our most memorable conversations. Let me start with number 10. We're going to kick off this countdown with episode 93, The Wealth Survival Guide, Divorce, Career Pivots, and Aging Parents. Our guests were Dr. Preston D. Cherry, Mariko Gordon, Jackie Kamenkowski, and Jack Campbell. And this panel tackled some of the hardest moments people face financially and emotionally. We selected this clip because it offers something rare in financial media: compassion. Jackie, what's your biggest financial lesson going through divorce and going on this solo transition?
Yeah, very much solo. For me, it's been a little bit longer. So, Jack, so sorry about, your dad and everything. So for me, it's well over 10 years, maybe pushing even 20 years. And whether it's divorce or death, both of them is a huge traumatic experience. And you have to allow yourself time to grieve, time to reflect. Sometimes you just need to sit in a dark corner by yourself. So when I share my story, yes, I'm fire now. I was behind, I caught up, I learned all this financial stuff. But I always like to stress that it took 2 years, nearly 2 years, for me to really be at a point where I could actually start moving and doing something different. You have to give yourself grace. Give yourself the time. There's only a handful of things that probably need to be addressed right away. Maybe your insurances, make sure you got health insurance if it was happen to be through your partner, life insurance, things like that, custody stuff. But if you give yourself the time to actually reflect and acknowledge that you need to make sure you're okay inside and mentally before you can really start doing something and feeling good about it and having the fortitude to actually move forward. So that would be sort of the early stuff to think about. And again, once you're through that hump, that's a big, tough hump. You are going to be able to do extraordinary things because you're able to think clearly. Your mind is able to focus on things and focus on the future, when before you got a lot of cloudiness going on, a lot of changes, so many things happening. Everybody you run into are asking you whether, it's a divorce or, a death of a spouse, they want to talk about it. And I know I was to the point where I got tired of talking about it. So I kind of got some different people around me, and that was so helpful for my mind to go different places other than, the trauma that I had just going through, that I had more in the future than had happened to me and more than what was in the past too.
That advice most people never hear. Sometimes the smartest move is to pause. So thank you to Jackie for giving us permission to do nothing. She shared that after her divorce, it took 2 years to feel ready to make a financial move. Her advice: triage the urgent and then wait. When you're in crisis, your brain is in survival mode. So give yourself grace to heal before you try to rebuild. Really important words. And the permission to do nothing is incredibly powerful. Top moment number 9. takes us into philosophy, psychology, and money. Episode 84 is The Science of Happiness and Financial Well-Being, featuring Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, the professor behind Harvard's most popular course, and two other professors, Dr. Scott Rick and Dr. Talia Marone-Schatz. I really felt like I went back to college on this one. We picked this clip because it forces a brutally honest question about why we pursue wealth in the first place. Let me start with Tal. You've called happiness life's ultimate currency. How do you explain to people that happiness is about more than wealth?
Yeah, so, think about it this way. If you had as much money as you wanted, $1 billion just handed over to you, and suddenly you found out that with that $1 billion, you're guaranteed misery. So you'll have all the money in the world that you need, but you're guaranteed misery. Would you take that money? Now, of course, many people would say, when I did it with my kids, they said, well, with $1 billion, I'll find a way to be happy. But what if you really couldn't? Well, then that money wouldn't be worth much to you. You would rather have a lot less money and be guaranteed, or at least have the opportunity to pursue happiness. This goes back thousands of years ago to the idea of Aristotle, who talked about happiness being the highest end, the goal towards which all other goals lead. In other words, at best, money is a means towards happiness, not an end in itself. Happiness is the end. Wealth, potentially, is the means.
So most of us did not have a happiness class in elementary school, middle school, high school, or college. Is it about defining our happiness?
Well, first of all, we need to understand what happiness is. Happiness is not about, is not the same as pleasure, for example. Yeah, sure, pleasure is part of it, but happiness is a much deeper concept, which includes, as we saw in the segment, a sense of meaning and purpose. It comes through gratitude. It certainly comes through cultivating relationships. So happiness is more of a holistic concept and construct. Helen Keller said it more than 100 years ago. To me, the only definition of happiness is wholeness.
So would you take the money if guaranteed misery? That question cuts through everything. Kudos to Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar for asking it. The answer, of course, is obvious, but it proves that money is just the means. Happiness is the ultimate currency. Every financial plan needs to be audited against that truth. In my career, I've seen people hit their financial goals and still feel empty. This clip reminds us that money is a means, not the destination. Coming in at number 8 is episode 91, the number 1 leadership mistake that kills company culture. This was a great leadership panel featuring Charlene Wheelis, Tiffany Yu, and Heather Younger. This moment stood out because it gives us a simple science-backed tool that anyone can use under pressure. Charlene, in moments of uncertainty, what's your personal decision-making framework for really staying grounded and clear? Oh, you're muted.
Whoops. Okay, I should be unmuted now. So I try to remember 2 things. One is you have been made for the moment, meaning you don't wake up one day and you're entry level and the next day you're the CEO of the company. So you've learned some things along the way. So trust what you've learned and you're able to make the decision. The other is a tool that I use, a mindset, and I've created over my lifetime, and I call it 7 seconds of courage. And I think with 7 seconds of courage, I believe with 7 seconds of courage, you can make a decision and you can change your life. And what's significant about 7 seconds is that those first 6 seconds, it's all biology. It's when your fight or flight response comes in. It's when you feel the cortisol, the stress hormone. And if you just stay quiet and let that pass, you can make a decision. And make it, because you are well prepared to be able to make that decision. And then there's just another very simple thing, which is if you make a wrong decision, chances are pretty good you're going to be faced with that decision again, right? So when all else fails, no, it's going to come back at you if it was the wrong decision. But I think in decisive moments, or in moments that require being decisive, be decisive, because you have the tools that you need, right? You're aligned with your values. You've got the experience. You trust yourself. Everyone knows that you are doing what is in the best interest of the organization, the best interest of them, and then only the best interest of yourself, right? Make the decision. Use your 7 seconds of courage. Take those 6 seconds. Take the deep breath and take an action.
I love the 7 seconds.
The future demands clarity, precision, and unwavering resolve. We will not fail to meet this moment.
Charlene gave us a biological hack for bravery. That first 6 seconds when cortisol is flooding your system, it's so important to breathe and take that 6 seconds just to pause. I think your rational brain returns in that 7 seconds of courage. It's not just a leadership tip, it's a life skill. And those 7 seconds matter more than people realize, and certainly can help us with our money decisions. So I think all of us, I was going to say that I've seen clients, I've seen people online, but all of us make irreversible financial decisions in those moments of panic. So learning to pause, even briefly, can save you from years of regret or making a big mistake. Number 7, challenges one of our deepest fears, inflation. Thank you to Kathy Fetke, Jason Hartman, Michael Albaum, and Monique Halm for contributing as panelists on a real estate episode. That was episode 69, Building Wealth Through Real Estate. It reframes inflation as something investors can actually use.
Jason, you mentioned inflation earlier. And inflation, I've heard you say, can be a hidden benefit for real estate investors. How can investors leverage that when securing financing today?
Oh, inflation is not to be underestimated. It is the greatest thing for real estate investors, especially when you use financing. Now, traditionally, every investor will tell you real estate is a great hedge against inflation. We've all heard that a zillion times. And that's because the value of the property will typically outperform inflation by a small margin. But that's not really that great. Let's add 2 more things to it. Number 1, leverage. So when we leverage our properties, we get a multiplier effect on that appreciation. So say, for example, real estate in a really good year is outperforming inflation by maybe 5%. Okay, so if you leverage that property and say you put 20% down and you finance 80%, now you have a multiplier. So that 5% differential that you were getting now turns into a 20% differential. So that's great. But wait, there's more, as they say on late night TV, on the infomercials. The debt, the value of the debt in terms of the balance of that mortgage and the monthly payment on that mortgage is constantly being debased or attacked by inflation. And this is good for us as investors because we borrow based on today's dollar value, but we pay back based on the future dollar value, which, as long as we have inflation, is lower. And I doubt there's anybody who could argue that we aren't going to have significant inflation in the coming years. There may be ups and downs in that over time. There will be recessionary periods, of course, but the long game is inflationary. And that inflation basically pays our debt down for us. I call this inflation-induced debt destruction. I know it's a mouthful, but that's really what it's doing. It's debasing and destroying the value of that debt. And if we owe money and we're the debtor, that's a wonderful thing for us because inflation is paying it back for us. Here's an example. Say, for example, just for round figures, a real estate investor has $1 million in mortgages. Say they bought, from my company, they would buy maybe 4 turnkey houses, and they would have a $1 million total mortgage value on those 4 properties. If we have 10% inflation, whether that takes place in 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, inflation basically reduced the value of that debt by $100,000. Inflation basically paid off $100,000 of the investor's debt. So it's a phenomenal hidden wealth creator.
Very powerful. Yeah. So you can spend more. You can spend stronger dollars today and pay back with weaker dollars tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing.
A really strong reminder from Jason on one of the benefits of real estate investing. By holding a 30-year fixed mortgage, you're paying the bank back with cheaper dollars every year if the currency is not worth what it was yesterday. So a brilliant strategy: outsource your debt repayment to the Federal Reserve's printing press. I want to add on to that. I've learned that debt is not inherently dangerous. It's mismanaged debt that is. So Jason's explanation gives people a rational framework instead of a fear-based decision-making process. Let's go to our top moments of Inspired Money 2025. Number 6 features absolute legends of retirement planning: Wade Pfau, Dana Anspa, Mary Beth Franklin, and Bill Bengen, the father of the 4% rule. In episode 70, we brought together the minds behind the most widely used retirement strategies in the world.
Bill, anything from your upcoming book that we have not covered today that you wanted to share?
There's a tremendous amount of material in that book. It's very densely packed. Maybe I could just briefly speak about 2 case studies I did, because I took a look at managing your withdrawal plan, not just creating one, which I think is a very important topic. Let's say an individual runs into a big bear market early in retirement, well, garden variety, 30 to 35%, and they're going to see their withdrawal rate shoot up, and they may be concerned that they have to do something drastic in their spending. The best tactic I found out is probably to do nothing. Is that the usually typical strong recovery in the stock market will take care of your withdrawal rate. It'll return to pretty much where it should be. However, if you run into unexpected high and sustained inflation early in retirement, that might last 5-7 years like the 1970s, it is time to panic. You should cut your expenses as soon and as drastically as you feel comfortable with, because inflation is the greatest enemy of retirees living off investment income. And if you don't do that, you really risk destroying your withdrawal plan.
Important.
And Andy, there is your headline: inflation is the greatest risk to retirees.
That's right.
Said like a reporter.
You heard it here first.
As we reflect back on the past year, it just blows my mind on who accepts my invitation to be a guest on the show. We never know who we're going to get. We send lots of emails and outreach, and have been pleasantly surprised many, many times over the course of the year since we started. And I think that this one's so good. I mean, we're conditioned to panic, especially when the stock market is all red. But Bill Bengen, who is one of the biggest authorities on retirement and his 4% rule, check out his new book that came out recently. But the lesson is that when the cost of living spikes, that's when you cut spending, and don't make decisions when you're in a panic. For top moment number 5, we zoom out a little bit to demographics, debt, and future growth. Our episode was episode 94, Markets Don't Scare These Professionals. Featured guests Katie Stockton, Mike Taylor, Seth Cogswell, and Gary Brode. Mike T is one of the most successful traders that I know. Today, he manages the Simplify Healthcare ETF, or PINK, where all profits are donated for the benefit of the Susan G. Komen Foundation every year. This episode does not sugarcoat reality. Mike T, I want to circle back to you on this idea that, the Fed has overreacted in its intervention and all the different vol strategies that exist today. Have you found like different things that you look at that give you that have become reliable in warning you that risk is rising?
I just had one of the most remarkable conversations last night at 12:30 in the evening with my daughter, Phoebe. She's 16 years old, and she wanted to understand what bothers me so much about the finances and the debt situation. And I'll walk you through it in short terms. And it was one of those magical conversations where she sat there for an hour with me with the marker at the whiteboard, because yes, we have a whiteboard in our kitchen for 12 a.m. tutorials. And I got to explain to her the problem. The problem is the demographics. I promise you with great certainty, 30 years from now, the populations of most industrialized nations will be 30% smaller. And if you, so the unit consumption or the requirements for industrialized worlds is going to be down by a third approximately, based upon age change and, the aging of the population and the dead population and not having new babies. And that creates a situation where you have negative aggregate demand in unit growth. And our fractional banking system is not modeled for that. And meaning that every dollar is borrowed into existence. Therefore, it doesn't work if you have negative growth. You can't pay that loan back. And what we've witnessed, I didn't know when it was going to start, but it's already started and we're well underway of the government's overspending in order to fill that gap. And you can see it as evidence in China and Japan and Southeast Asia for most of it, and Europe and the US, where the governments are meaningfully overspending in order to have positive GDP growth, because we would probably not have positive GDP growth otherwise, and that would cause a calamity. And so you have an instance in Japan where they have inflation, they have negative population growth, and they are printing money and buying assets, and they can't, while raising interest rates. And so it is a conundrum wrapped in a riddle. You can't do that, and they're lying to the public, but they're doing it anyway because the alternative is a debt bomb collapsing. And that's why the central banks are overreacting to every cloud in the horizon, because if they can't keep overspending, we are going to have a massive calamity happen. And on that calamity, I believe that they will start printing money. And when I look at the actual organic demand out there for consumption moving forward over the next 30 years, it's negative. And that means that they can't stop printing once they start. And we already see it on the yield curves. And I got all the way with her down into the yield curves, and why, as the yield curves mature and we have to refi all this debt, by the end of the decade, it's a high probability that the US is going to be spending around 50% of our tax revenue to pay interest on debt. So they're going to have to start printing money. Anyway, that is what I'm talking about. That is what bothers me. Look, we can trade this stuff and make a fortune, okay? And we'll be all right. But for the bottom 50% of the world that is not in the investor class, it is going to be functional Armageddon.
Well, welcome to this feel-good episode of Inspired Money. I love having Mike T on the show. I think that was his third appearance in that clip, or maybe, yeah, I think that was the third appearance. And excited that I got to finally meet Mike in person earlier this year in Vegas at an event, and we got to have dinner. Always enjoy his company, but most importantly, appreciate that he has a view. And in that clip, Mike's point is uncomfortable, but it's essential. And I think that it's important for all investors to try to identify mega trends and what potential risks, what the pros are, what the cons are, so that as things play out, you can act accordingly. So if the world is running out of people, which the data suggests that that is the case in most places around the world, Mike's explaining that shrinking populations, that means shrinking GDP. And it forces governments to print money and to do things to keep the system afloat and keep growth going. So it's a sober reminder of why hard assets like gold and maybe even cryptocurrency like Bitcoin have a place in a modern portfolio. Moving on to our next favorite inspired money moment of 2025. Number 4 is one of the highest ROI moments of the year. Our guests were Howard Dvorkin, Anthony Davenport, Cullen Canizares, and Raina Goebel. It's episode 85, Unlocking the Power of Credit, and it reveals how the credit system actually works, not how we assume it works. Anthony, I'm a fan of your book, Your Score. In it, you pull back the curtain on the mystery of credit scoring. What's one insider secret that consumers almost never realize about these 5 factors?
You know, piggybacking on Howard's point about the FICO score and what it's comprised of, one overlooked part is that 35% of your FICO score, the biggest chunk, comes down to your payment history, whether you're paying your bills on time, and 30% comes down to whether what your balances are on those credit cards. So it's almost as much of a percentage as whether you pay your bills on time as what kind of balances you have on your credit cards or revolving credit card debt. But now the most important aspect of that is really the due date on those cards. Many people come to us and they say, well, my scores they're kind of bouncing around all over the place from month to month. Why is that? And that's because your credit card balances only report every 30 to 45 days. So that means even if you pay your balance off in full each month, if it's a different date than when they report to the credit bureaus, your credit score could bounce around wildly. So I tell everyone that you should find out the reporting dates for each of your credit cards and set up your auto payment to pay it off a few days in advance before that date. That way, your credit score is going to stay optimal every month in and out.
Thank you to Anthony for one of the best practical hacks of the year. Because the banks report your balance on a specific reporting date, if you pay before that date, you may look debt-free to the bureau. So it's a tiny tweak that can boost your credit score overnight. Moving on to our top inspired money moments. Number 3, reframes crypto entirely. This is a really fun conversation. Episode 86, The Future of Cryptocurrencies. Our guests were Dr. Merav Ozer, Sir John Hargrave, Chris Klein, and Nick Spanos. This episode is not about hype. It's about trust in the age of AI. Merav, you've said AI stakes, blockchain authenticates. Can you share how you see blockchain providing trust and transparency in an AI-driven world?
Yeah, exactly. With the hype of AI at the moment, everyone is fearful that everything is fake, especially with the deep fake. But, there's a lot of other things like the bias and hallucination and everything else. But, just think about the deep fake issue of that. When you see a photo today, you always ask yourself, is it real? You see a video, is it real? We have seen, incidents with whether it's celebrities or politicians or anything, that they were fake. And we know, and there are also scams that have been, and in fact, it's been, a boon for criminals to use the deepfake, for expedite, the scams. So yes, as I said, AI fakes, that's what it can do. And with technology that is advancing, it can do it even better than ever. And it's going to do it even better and better. But so we need some authentication. We need to understand whether this is true. I mean, am I looking at the real thing, or is it just someone trying to hallucinate me? So, and this is where blockchain comes into play, because blockchain, the whole idea of blockchain is authentication. Whatever you record on the blockchain cannot be erased. It is there forever. That's what we call it, is immutable. So whatever is going to be recorded on the blockchain, going to be recorded. This is and you can record, like a smart contract with all the information, like an NFT with all the information. So every let's say photo, audio, text, anything, basically anything that you can imagine, even this video, can be authenticated on the blockchain.
That episode was timely because AI has certainly been front and center when it comes to the stock market in 2025. This year has been dominated by AI headlines. And indeed, AI fakes, blockchain authenticates. It's an important thing to remember because we really don't know how digital currencies will play out, which digital currencies will be useful in the future and well used by people. But I think that Dr. Mirov's message really reframes crypto from a speculative casino into a necessary truth machine. In a world where AI can fake your voice and face, blockchain becomes the digital notary that perhaps we cannot live without. From my perspective, trust is the foundation of every financial system, and blockchain's role in verification may end up being its most important contribution. So something to watch very closely. Thank you for watching this countdown. I'm excited because we've just got 2 left. Our top inspired money moment of 2025, number 2, is one of the most emotionally powerful moments we've ever aired. Our guests, Sandra Davis, Martha Menard, and Mariko Gordon. Episode 63, The Psychology of Money. It goes beneath the numbers and into stories that we carry about money.
I mean, I suspect that emotional spending, there's an intersection between emotional spending and financial trauma. Sandra, any tips on helping people to heal from past financial wounds?
Yeah, so I have gone all in on internal family systems. And having been a consumer of many different types of therapy, this has been the single most impactful model that I have experienced, both as a practitioner and as someone who is using it just in my own life. And what I'm finding is that now that I'm recognizing that I have this multiplicity of parts, and that's really the bottom line. There's a self, right? There's a self energy, and then there's different parts. So I have a people pleaser part, and I have a perfectionist part, and I have a part that doom scrolls on the telephone when I need to distract myself. And so I have all of these different parts. And the thing that I like best about this philosophy is that the self, who we are, our core, our wisest essence, cannot be damaged or destroyed. So they got me when they said that, right? Because at our core, we cannot be damaged. And I spent a lot of my life feeling like there was something wrong with me. And now I understand this distinction between what's called a manager or a protector part that kind of zooms in and says, hey, I'm not going to let you think about that. We're going to have a Reese's peanut butter cup, or we're going to get on the web shopping thing, or we're going to hit one of those food ordering places where they will drop off a pizza at your door, baby. You don't even have to put on clothes, right? And so I know that these things exist and that those things can pull me away from the trauma or the pain or whatever it is that I'm on the verge of experiencing. And so now that I understand that, I actually can self-soothe, right? And self is the operative word. It's treated as a capital S, right? So that wisest part of me, rather than, as a coach, we hear things like, oh, you got to push down the saboteur. You've got to, step away from that. You've got to elevate. And, this philosophy is very different, where it is more like a mindfulness practice, where you recognize that that part exists and you investigate and acknowledge, just allow it to be there and investigate it and understand what is its job? What are you there to do? And then nurture that part. And so your wisest part is, your wisest self is nurturing those hurt parts of you. And so that's really, I know it's not a tip per se, but it is an awareness that we might be broke, but we're not broken, right? We might be struggling, but that doesn't make us bad people. We might be anywhere along the financial structure. What is the word I'm looking for? The continuum, right? Thank you. That's what I was going for, Doc. We could be anywhere along that continuum. From extreme poverty to extreme wealth, and still not be at peace. And so when we navigate what it means to have peace, and how do we facilitate that peace with the choices, how we take care of ourselves, how we feed ourselves, how we use our resources, and money being one of those resources. I think that's the tip that I would offer.
Sandra Davis is so good. I love that Inspired Money gives me the opportunity to invite these really smart people to the table. And even though I may sit there feeling a little bit inferior, but I learned so much, and I hope that you do too. Just a reminder to subscribe to the Inspired Money YouTube channel. We want to hit 6K subscribers before the end of the year. And financial shame here, I think, is the biggest barrier to wealth. And Sandra just shattered that shame with one sentence. We might be broke, but we're not broken. She explains that your bad money habits, like emotional spending, they're not flaws. They are firefighters trying to protect you from pain. And understanding that is the first step to healing your relationship with money. Her comments actually changed how I interact and talk with clients, because shame shuts people down. Compassion opens the door to progress. And in my experience as a financial advisor, I can say with certainty, people don't fail financially because they're broken. We have reached the #1 Inspired Money moment of 2025. And our #1 moment comes from a true pioneer, episode 76, Mindset Mastery for Financial Success, features Vicki Robin, author of Your Money or Your Life. She was joined by Dr. Anna Yusum and Laura Tainan. This clip captures the core philosophy behind everything that we do on this show.
Vicki, let me begin with you. Your book, Your Money, Your Life, helped millions rethink their relationship with money. How does intentional living help rewire our limiting beliefs?
I think that the key in Your Money, Your Life, there's 2 keys in Your Money, Your Life, or maybe 3, I don't know. But one is the recognition that despite what the society says, despite all of the messages, through, all of the channels, money is actually something that you trade your life energy for. You trade the hours of your life for money. And when you think about your life, rather than thinking about investing your life in money, you think about, how does money serve me in my life? And all the things I want to do and be in my life. We're not just workers, we're partners and parents and aunts and uncles. And we have so many interests that are outside of the realm of money, but somehow or another, we have to, at some point in life, we have to tuck ourselves into the dominant paradigm. And so when you start thinking about, are these purchases worth the hours of my life? Is it going to make me truly happy? Is it going to take me in the direction I want to go? Many people don't have a purpose in life beyond their jobs, but even just asking the question, is this purchase, is this activity around money take me where I want to be in life? Me, a human, a soul, can induce a question around, am I here for more than money?
Money equals life energy. That equation never stops being relevant. And Vicky is so good about giving us fresh insights into our money. And here she reminds us that money isn't just paper, it's life energy. Every dollar that you spend represents hours of your life that you will never get back. And this isn't just a budgeting tip, it's a philosophy. Before you buy anything, ask yourself, is this worth 5 hours of my life? That simple question might change everything. As we wrap up our Best of 2025 episode, my favorite moment comes down to one simple idea from Vicky, that money is life energy. And after reviewing more than 40 hours of advice this year, that insight cuts through everything. Every dollar that we earn, save, or spend, it represents hours of our lives. When you can see that, financial decisions stop being abstract and start becoming intentional. So here's one thing that I want you to do right now to set yourself up for success in 2026. Pick one recurring expense and ask yourself, is this worth the life energy I'm trading for it? If the answer is yes, keep it and enjoy it guilt-free. If no, redirect that money toward something that actually supports the life that you want to live. Think about it like Marie Kondo in holding up your belongings and deciding whether or not it sparks joy. Do that with some of your recurring expenses, and you just might find a way to more financial happiness. I think that small intentional choices made consistently are how inspired money turns into an inspired life. So thank you for spending part of your life energy with us this year. We look forward to seeing you in 2026. Bradley, your thoughts on 2025 or next year?
2025 was a mess, but we're still going. 2026 is going to be very, very radical. Like we may end up looking back at 2026 as the year that the world radically changed, but we'll see. We've got some big things like up our sleeve as well. So enjoy. Have a good festive season, everybody.
Yeah, we're gonna have. We look forward to implementing some new things in 2026. We just have 5 episodes of the Inspired Money live stream series, total 100, and we're going to be finishing that in the early part of the new year. We really look forward to what will come next. We're still planning that out and putting our creative minds to work on thinking about how do we plan and reshape our YouTube channel. Go to Inspired Money at YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe. And thank you for joining us, Inspired Money Maker. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on perhaps your favorite inspired money moment of this year. And let us also know what topics or what things you'd like to see from us in 2026. Be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me by searching for Advisor Andy. Inspired Money is produced by me and Bradley John Eaglefeather. Appreciate Bradley coming on, putting his face on camera, and stepping out from behind the curtain. Usually you don't get to see him because he's busy behind the scenes. He's running the live stream. He's shaping the segment edits. He's keeping everything running smoothly. Our visuals and animations are done by Chad Lawrence, making the episode look as good as it sounds. And we have some great shows coming up in the new year. I'm just going to highlight one, The Psychology of Money, Understanding the Emotions and Behaviors that Impact Financial Decisions. That's how we're going to kick off Inspired Money in the new year. That'll be Wednesday, January 7th. And we have 2 guests lined up already. We have 2 more to be announced, but the show will feature James B. Duke Professor of Psychology and Behavioral Economics at Duke University, Dan Ariely. And we will also have Brian Portnoy on. He's author of The Geometry of Wealth, How to Shape a Life of Money and Meaning. That's going to be a great episode and a great way to kick off the year. That will be at 1 p.m. Again, Wednesday, January 7th. We are going to take a little time off going into the end of this year. Thank you for watching, listening, and engaging with us. We really appreciate you spending time with us, whether that's on the full length of the live stream, some of the video segments, or the shorts that we've been posting. So I wish you a wonderful holiday with people who count. Until next time, do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens. Thanks for joining us.